You've talked a lot recently about self-construal. This is not a household word. What does self-construal mean?
Self-construal is really the idea of your construction of sense of self, whether you're constructing it from a more independent angle or interdependent angle. But I think the terms gain currency is because a lot of interpersonal, intercultural researchers are grappling with ways to how to unpackage the colossal terms of individualism, collectivism to more specific directions. So there's difference between cultural level analyses and individual level analyses. And construal of self is the individual level analyses, personality attributes and tendencies, with independent self tend to be emphasized more on personal initiative, personal accountability, achievement. In comparison, interdependent self tends to emphasize more on relational harmony issue, cooperative issues, etc.
What I hear you saying is that it could possibly be that even though I was raised in an independent or individualistic society, I could have a self-construal that was much more interdependent, and so that maybe I would be self-effacing because within my culture I'm way off to one side. Is that possible?
And that's a very accurate perception. That while we talk about cultural patterns as the central tendencies of a curve, you might be the outlier.
3 standard deviations away.
Exactly. Not to mention, insiders always, especially the Western or U.S. insider, always think that they are not typical Americans. So they all want to claim that they are a little bit different from the rest of the majority of the group norms. So you're right that definitely I'd say in a pluralistic or heterogeneous cultural system, there are more noises and there are more diversity of personality type attributes. So you could be born and raised in an individualistic society, but your personality tendency, maybe even your family upbringing, could be fairly interdependent oriented.
You and your colleagues recently have found that self-construal, this individual identity, is a better predictor of conflict style than culture. Does that bother you? Does that make it seem like, oh, my theory was wrong? Or
No, I was very excited.
Why?
Yeah. Because like I say, too, culture also is not a static entity, it's dynamic. I always don't believe that. I mean, on a broad level, as a theorist, we have to start somewhere and say that, all right, overall, Australian culture tend to be this way, or the Korean culture tend to be this way, or Mexican cultures. But we all know those are such broad labels that we could never capture the immense diversity of human behaviors under a broad label of this big colossal concept called Mexican culture or the US culture. So I was very pleased in terms of finding that, of course, on the individual level, there's tremendous variations.